Welcome to another Critical Lens video, this time looking at historicism or historical criticism. Remember that critical lenses are like perspectives. They're ways of looking at the world around us. Now you can look at the world in a lot of different ways. You might be an optimist who sees the glass as half full, or you might be a pessimist who sees the glass as half empty. Now historicism comes from a philosopher named Michel Foucault. Now, Foucault fundamentally believed that what we should look at when we look at literature or the world is the historical setting that it comes from. If it's about the Civil War, think about the Civil War. If it's about the disco era, you should know a little bit about disco and how that influences things. Fundamentally, historical criticism analyzes how the time when a story is set, or the time when it was written, influences the meaning of the story. So if a historical critic were to look at the glass of water, they'd see it as containing water because of the modern advances in plumbing and sewage. That helps them to look at the time that this goes on. The more we know about the time frame when something happens, the better we can understand it. Let's expand on this idea a little bit by thinking about how it would work in the real world. Imagine that my dog Sydney is a scholar in Foucault's style, and he's taught my cat to think that way too. Here they are eating food. But now, with their historical training kick in, so Minnie sees her food and thinks this. She's far more positive about things, and she looks at the time frame she lives in and all the scientific advancements in food science. But Sydney can see it other ways. Again, he's thinking about the time frame this has happened, and using that to analyze the situation. We can apply the same skills of study to popular culture. Remember the Captain America from a few years ago? Captain America is set in a time where America's fighting with Germany. So we can see that the diverse background around Captain America helps to contrast good with evil. But we can also see it from the time frame of the people who made the movie. Since the people who made the movie live in a modern world and made it for a modern audience, they might have included a more diverse cast to appeal to a more diverse America who goes to see movies now. In Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury wrote about the future, but he was writing from a time when book burnings were a common threat. That's why book burning appears so prevalently in his future. For American-born Chinese, we can see a whole history of Chinese stereotypes, and they come about even in our modern time where there are still Chinese stereotypes. Now you guys get to practice this by looking at a classic Disney film, the 1990 version of Hercules. What do you think a historical critic would focus on? Press pause now. The answer to that question should be A. They'd want to focus in on the time that it's about, rather than anything that's feminist in nature. All about when it was made. Take a look at another example. Which do you think a historical critic would focus on? Press pause now. Now the answer to that question should be B. That's more about what we're dealing with in our current situation and helps us to understand why this movie was made in the first place. All right, here's your last question. Which do you think they should focus on? Press pause now. This time the answer could be A or B. One focuses on when the movie is set, another focuses in on the modern time when the movie was made. Both would be valid for to be studied in historical criticism. Now, some people have issues with historical criticism. They think that it allows us to sort of wash over some of the more problematic areas by saying things like blackface or expectations for women to be subservient to men were appropriate during that time and therefore aren't worthy of study. It's all about how you see the context. Thank you for watching.